Security rarely announces itself as a trap. It arrives as a steady paycheck, a predictable schedule, a life that finally feels under control. Most people believe instability ruins lives, but more often, it's stability that slowly erases them. If you're drawn to quiet stories about money, choices, and time, this is the Rich versus Poor Journal. Subscribe, and let's continue the story. Daniel didn't plan to stay at the company forever. Nobody ever does. When he first joined, the office felt temporary, a stepping stone while he figured out what he really wanted. He worked late, learned fast, and told himself this was just the beginning of something bigger. The salary wasn't impressive, the role wasn't exciting, but it was stable. And at the time, stability felt like progress. After 2 years, the company gave him a raise. Not a huge one, just enough to make life easier. He moved into a slightly better apartment, bought a more reliable car, started eating out more often. Nothing extravagant, just small improvements that made his life comfortable. And comfort has a strange effect on ambition. It doesn't kill it overnight. It just softens the urgency. Daniel stopped checking job listings, not consciously. He simply stopped feeling the need. The evenings he once spent learning new skills slowly turned into evenings spent unwinding, watching shows, scrolling his phone, telling himself he deserved the rest. After all, he was working hard. Across the city, Marcus had started at the same company, on the same day. Same salary, same training, same office floor. But Marcus treated the job differently. To him, the company wasn't a destination, it was a clock. Every morning Marcus arrived early, not to impress anyone, but because those quiet morning hours were the only time he had to build something outside the job. He was learning systems, experimenting with small online projects, testing ideas that failed more often than they worked. To his coworkers, Marcus looked tired. To Daniel, he looked obsessive. At the time, nothing about Marcus's routine seemed important. Most decisions never do. That's why they shape entire lives without anyone noticing. 3 years passed. Daniel's salary increased again. This time enough to feel proud. He upgraded his furniture, signed a longer lease, started thinking about buying a home someday. For the first time, his life felt settled, safe, predictable. Marcus's salary also increased, but instead of upgrading his lifestyle, he upgraded his time. He negotiated remote days, reduced unnecessary expenses, saved aggressively, not for comfort, but for flexibility. Because Marcus wasn't trying to improve his job, he was trying to reduce how much he needed it. 5 years after they both joined, the company announced restructuring. It wasn't dramatic, just a calm internal email. Departments would be merged, roles would be reviewed, positions would be reevaluated. Corporate language always sounds gentle, right until it isn't. Daniel read the email twice. His stomach tightened in a way he couldn't explain. For the first time in years, he realized how completely his life depended on that one monthly deposit. Rent, car payments, insurance, everything. His stability suddenly felt fragile. Marcus read the same email. Then he closed his laptop and continued working on his own project. Because by then, his income didn't come from one place anymore. It came from systems he had spent years quietly building while nobody was watching. 2 months later, Daniel's role was eliminated. The meeting lasted 11 minutes. HR spoke calmly. His manager looked uncomfortable. They handed him a printed packet explaining next steps. When he walked out of the building, nothing looked different.
but everything was. For years, Daniel had believed he was building security. Only now did he realize he had been building dependence. Marcus resigned 3 weeks later, not because he had to, because he could. His side projects had grown into something stable enough to replace the salary he once relied on. The job was a tool, not a lifeline. 10 years after their first day at the company, Daniel eventually found another role. Good salary, good benefits, another stable environment. But something inside him had changed. He no longer mistook comfort for protection, because once you've watched security disappear, you never fully trust it again. Marcus never worked a traditional office job after that, not because his path was easy, but because years earlier, while everyone else was settling into comfort, he had quietly been building exits. Most people think the biggest risk in life is failure. So they search for safety, they search for stability, they search for something that feels permanent. But permanence is often just another word for dependence, and the moment life changes, the difference between stability and freedom becomes impossible to ignore. Some people spend years building a life that feels secure. Others spend those same years building a life that can survive without it. Most lives split quietly, long before anyone notices.